Hi, everyone. This is Libby Emmons. I'm filling in for Tim Pool this week on Culture War. I'm really glad to be here. We have a great show today. We're going to be talking all about Antifa, terrorism, and what's going on in the United States with the left. And we have incredible guests with us today that I'm really excited to introduce you to. Why don't you get started?
Me first.
Yeah, here all you right. are.
Richie McGinniss, author of Riot Diet. And now I got like 4 different jobs now, so I won't list them, but at Richie McGinniss, and I was on the ground for a lot of this stuff in 2020. I'm semi-retired now, so Andy is not, though.
Andy, was this week in the White House at the amazing roundtable with President Trump, and he's here with us today. I'm very glad to see you, Andy.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. My name's Andy Ngo, author of the book Unmasked. It was a New York Times bestseller. I wish I had won the show, but I had the privilege of giving it to the president after the roundtable. And I'm also a senior editor at the Post Millennial, and I have a Substack called No Comment.
I'm Nick Sortor. I just yell for a living online. It's a pleasure to be here with Trump's next Antifa czar, or first Antifa czar, Andy Ngo. That's what we're going to start pushing here. Make that go viral, guys. No Comment is a fantastic name for a blog bio, by the way.
Thank you.
It's pretty awesome. So appreciate you having me here. And this guy's pretty awesome, too.
What's going on? Libby, thank you so much for having us here. We appreciate it. Definitely grateful to be here to discuss Antifa and some domestic terrorism that we're seeing all over the country. Now, you guys, my name's James Klug. I'm a YouTuber focusing on political commentary and street videos. You guys might have seen me. It's at James Klug on YouTube and MySpace. Thank you for having me.
So I just wanted to get started with you guys. You guys all have a lot of expertise in ground reporting, in research, and what's been going on with the far left and Antifa over the past several years. And we've really seen in the second Trump administration a big focus on this kind of violence. We've seen a crackdown in Portland, which is amazing in part because of Andy and my colleague Katie Daviscourt, who's been out there since June covering the violence at the ICE facilities. What do you attribute this resurgence in attention to Antifa under the Trump administration? Why is he so invested in dealing with this? We saw the first ever roundtable at the White House about Antifa. That's never happened before. None of us has ever seen the president sit down with independent journalists and reporters, street reporters. People have been assaulted, people have been doxxed, all of this stuff. We've never seen a president sit down and actually take independent journalists seriously about their work. The Biden administration shut independent journalists out, I think revoked something like 400 press passes. What do you attribute this to? Why is it so urgent right now?
You want to go, Andy?
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things. There are events that have happened this year. So the violence against ICE has started since June, in Portland in particular, but it's spread to cities across the U.S. That's just general left-wing violence. It includes a coalition that has many of the same people from 2020, but Mexican nationalists, open borders extremists have been brought into that coalition. In July, in Alvarado, Texas, the Prairie Land ICE facility was shot up in an ambush shooting attack by members allegedly of a North Texas Antifa cell. Some of them were also members of a John Brown gun club, which is a far left militia group. So in that instance, there was allegedly a group of 16 to 17 of them who conspired, carried out the shooting. An officer was shot in the neck, and many of them were caught that night or in the coming days. One, the alleged ringleader, Benjamin Song, was on the run and was found almost 2 weeks later. It was a huge FBI manhunt, and he was being hidden in a essentially Antifa safe house in Dallas. Then there have been a number of attacks on journalists in Portland, and influencers and others who have visited. And I think what really pushed it through the line in terms of like a White House agenda item was, I believe, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. In the immediate days after that, there was a lot of lies and misinformation spread by the left. They said that the suspect was far right, that he was a Christian nationalist, all these horrible lies that went quite mainstream on the left to obfuscate from what was written on the rifle cartridges. A fascist catch, the lyrics of Bella Ciao. I mean, when the governor of Utah read the lyrics of Bella Ciao, I know it went over the ears of most people. They may not be familiar with that Italian folk song, but that has been adopted as like the worldwide Antifa anthem. And there's not a lot of space you can use to write on these rifle cartridges. And the fact that one of the 4 was dedicated to that, I think says a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, what do you think, Nick?
I mean, I think Andy's absolutely right. But I think it in terms of this, the White House being sort of, I guess, shocked into this roundtable that we were all, very grateful that we were all invited to this. And I mean, they picked some great people to go. I mean, Andy's been working on this for the longest time, and then I think one of the catalysts to, like, a lot has happened over the past 10 days, including the assault of Katie Davenport there in Portland, where I mean, I've talked about this a lot over the past 10 days because it's so infuriating to me to watch this video of Katie being, hit with a flagpole, given a concussion. She still has a black eye. I saw it, 2 days ago at the White House, and watching the Portland police just walk slowly behind the assailant, say, "You're detained," and the assailant saying, "No, I'm not, F you," and then walking away. That infuriated a lot of conservatives, especially like reporters and influencers, that then immediately went to Portland and then started covering it on the ground. And then,
It really created a groundswell.
It really did. And
Well, to top that off, you.
that didn't help. That didn't help Portland police. That's for sure.
Where's the flag?
He shows up, reports there for how long were you reporting there for?
I was
like a
there
day?
for less than 24 hours.
Less than 24 hours. Everyone's sick and tired of hearing Antifa. What, they took over an entire, literally like annexed a block right outside of federal property, and then you show up for less than 24 hours and you're the one that gets arrested.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think that that really showed the contrast here. We see the video of Katie's assailant giving the finger to the police and not being arrested, which I think was total. Like, now they put out this. What they put out now? Like this bulletin or this bolo. Like, be on the lookout for this person.
The person that assaulted her.
Yeah.
They put it out the next day. They had her within their reach on the day that she was assaulted. She brought them to her assailant.
Yeah.
He had
in the
her,
safe house. They knew exactly where she was.
And then he walked away. He let her go. And then literally the next day, they put out a thing, like, help us find this person. It's like, where she was, and you knew where she was yesterday.
Also, it doesn't even matter with that specific group being all black bloc necessarily, because 95% of them are just unfortunate shapes and sizes, to where you can pretty much, like, Andy No, you ask unique. You ask Andy No to identify somebody based on the shape or size, and he'll be like, yeah, that's this individual. They have this rap sheet of arrest reports and all that stuff. I know it's pretty early on in the Trump administration, right? What, 8 months? 9 months? 8 months?
Yeah.
Well, 9 months, whatever.
Something like
Anyways, the reason I'm saying that is because, yes, it's still early on, but I do think that this roundtable pointed at a common trend that we're seeing. The status quo is over. We're sick and tired of seeing that these militant groups can just assault journalists and conservatives with impunity. Nobody's going to do anything about it. Yeah, sure, local leaders obviously aren't going to do anything about it. In fact, they're probably just going to arrest you for showing up and reporting on it. But, when it comes to the actual federal government, they're going to put pressure on leadership to actually do something. And if they're not going to do anything, they're going to go and, make moves on their own. And you can feel that on the ground. Andy, I don't know if you kind of noticed a little bit more of a taming or Antifa, just they're not sending out their most insane troops. And if they are, they're probably getting arrested and getting slapped with federal charges now. But it's really different compared to 2020 and 2021 for sure, 100%. It's a different vibe on the ground. And I was only there, I know,
What's the
for a couple
vibe?
days recently. What was that?
It's tamer than it was in 2020?
Oh, right now, yeah.
There's no leaf blowers. They don't even have leaf blowers yet, let alone the metal saws they use to saw the fences down. I think that's why we're seeing it, though, because the Trump administration in 2020, sent in the DHS troops, which is kind of the equivalent of the ICE now, to defend the federal courthouse. And they were, only able to protect that one little area surrounding the federal courthouse, and it persisted for like 150 days.
Right.
So I think now they're preempting that and saying we don't want to end up with another Chaz. But
Yeah,
that's
I actually
effectively what we're
remember the
getting.
day that Andy jumped in and was like, well, it's been 100 days
Yeah.
in 2020
And I remember
outside the
seeing-
Portland Federal Building.
We saw Katie and Andy in the Chaz as well. Katie went in there with the American flag, and she effectively was assaulted when they ripped the flag away from her. And at that time, people were just like less aware than they are now. So I think a lot more conservatives are now showing up to these places and demonstrating on the other side of things.
And that was not something that was I mean, dude,
was
you were
gnarly.
hiding in 2020
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, most people were, at least, and if you weren't, you're probably getting assaulted or even worse. Right? It was pretty hairy for a moment there. But the other night when we were at the ICE facility in Portland, you have like 30 conservatives showing up, showing support for ICE.
There were a
it's
bunch
it's
of-
a totally different
Yeah, Andy
environment.
was the only one. I mean, I remember you were literally wearing, talk about being able to identify somebody from a silhouette. You were wearing like all black ski goggles, not even a single inch of skin was exposed. And they're like, there's Andy No, like within 2 seconds of you showing up.
You mean in
In
2020?
Chaz, yeah, it was,
In Chaz,
what's his or her name? What was the,
The Trantifa sex prostitute.
Amy? Yeah, what's her name again? Amy something?
The Trantifa sex.
The person's preferred to go by Nikki.
Nikki, that's it, Nikki.
Yeah.
Original name was,
I forget.
Nick Jameson. That's it.
That's
Nick Jameson.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Now Nikki. Got it.
Yeah, they would go after you. I mean, geez, dude. Yeah, it's changed so much. They would go after you if you had a cell phone in your hand. You weren't even recording.
Yeah.
If you were holding your phone like this, they would say, well, open that up. What videos have you taken? Show us your social media. And it wouldn't just be like one guy and you'd be like, okay, get out of here. Come on, bro. It'd be 10. It'd be 10 people surrounding you and you were the only person that was there, basically.
That's something, yeah, I remember the reporting on that Antifa militants would prevent people from reporting, prevent people from recording. There was a whole thing about basically Antifa somehow got Oregon to stop releasing mugshots, right, based on your reporting. And that,
I'm disappointed. I'm not going to be able to see my mugshot.
Right. Oregon will not release the
Did you
mugshot.
request
Maybe
that,
they'll
by the
release
way?
it.
I guess I have to request it. I assumed it would be online somewhere. Like by the time I was out, I thought
leaked?
people would post it. But Portland wasn't even in 2020. I wasn't doing this in 2020. I was in real estate at the time, but I was still I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, which had a
There's
lot
some
of
spiciness there.
spiciness
My
there.
coworkers got arrested over there.
Yeah. Well, who did
Shelby and Jorge.
Yeah.
That was the one trip I didn't go on.
Oh, I didn't go on that one either.
It was
I
after
remember that.
Kenosha. I was like, I'm going on a surf trip. And I was like, of course, my Irish luck, the one trip I don't go on. And I'm like, oh, man, Jorge and Shelby are in jail. Oh, I'm going to get
Yeah, I
them
remember
out.
that too.
Didn't they get like tossed
Sorry,
on a
guys.
bus?
Oh, yeah. They were. I found out from Jorge's Instagram story. Somehow they let him have his phone and he's just like handcuffed to another guy. And he's like, I'm in jail. I was like, oh.
I have heard. I've not been to this jail, but I know that I've heard horror stories
Yeah.
about Metro Corrections down there. But I was in downtown Louisville, right near the courthouse. They're doing all these Breonna Taylor riots, and it was just the courthouse had no windows anymore. They'd all been blown out, and I'm just walking around like wanted to document it for my personal Snapchat. That was it at the time. And I'm going around and I'm video recording, and they chase me down the block. They corner me and they hold me at gunpoint for my phone.
At gunpoint.
At gunpoint.
Who were these people?
They ended up being arrested after because I ended up like hitting the gun out of his hand, which was really stupid at the
Yeah,
time.
well.
I wanted my phone though. I didn't have
You're
any
alive,
money,
though.
so it's like I didn't have much to lose. Anyway, but I jumped the fence, and they did this in front of the 911 call center. Is where this happened down in Louisville, and the only people that were there were EMTs that had radios, so they were able to radio. But it took the police 10 minutes to get there because there was a 2-mile no-go zone
Yeah.
for police in downtown Louisville, and it's still never recovered down there.
Why is there a no-go zone?
There was a no-go zone in
Why,
2020.
yeah, why was there?
Summer of Love.
It was, yeah,
Because
there
of
was
all
autonomous
this
zones.
stuff?
Yeah, because Breonna Taylor, the that whole.
I remember Breonna Taylor.
Yeah.
And
Jazz.
speaking of that, I just want to say this while we're on that topic. Brett Hankison, who was one of the officers in the Breonna Taylor raid, is now sentenced to I believe 4 years in prison, and I think he reports like Monday. So
That's crazy.
So I think I'm gonna be doing. Watch for that because I don't think that guy should be. I think he was recommended like a day in jail by federal prosecutors, and the judge was like, nah, he's getting 4 years.
I'm forgetting kind of a lot of the specifics about that case, but I do remember, I mean, the boyfriend did have. He was
shot
legally.
at police.
Yeah, but he was
Yeah.
legally allowed to be like have a firearm there. It was all legally owned, and I don't believe he knew. And it seemed like he had a decent case for.
He didn't know
I'm playing
they were
devil's
cops.
advocate here.
He didn't know they were cops.
That they were
is what
cops.
he said.
Right. They were definitely involved in some. It seemed allegedly involved in some like drug activity or
It
something.
was like her
wasn't it?
ex-boyfriend apparently was involved in something. They thought
Yeah.
she was involved in as well. I don't know if she was. And so this is what I remember. So don't quote me on it.
No.
And then they came after her. He shot at them. He shot at the cops before they came in. They opened fire before going in. She had come out of the bedroom and I believe was struck in the hallway. Yeah. This is what I recall of that case.
Yeah, I mean, there was that whole lie where they said that she was, and I mean, I mean, I like she shouldn't have been killed
Right.
for sure.
But so that speaks that whole thing in 2020, you had Antifa and BLM.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so Antifa was essentially, was it Antifa using BLM or was BLM using Antifa?
It was
Antifa using BLM.
Yeah.
And now
That was mutually
Antifa,
beneficial
Right.
to one another.
and now Antifa is using Mexican nationals and drug cartels.
or PS like Party
And
for
trans.
Socialism and Liberation. So like there's two different arms of these protests. Is you have the organized side, which is forward facing. They have flyers and all that. Antifa will do flyers, but like in DC, for example, or around the country, you'll have the No Kings protests.
Yeah,
And
that's
those are
coming up.
sponsored by places
October
like
18th.
PSL, and then you look into their funding, and it's just like any other, the Muslim Brotherhood or radical Islamist cells around the world. They'll just rename themselves. So now you have Indivisible, which is funded by the Open Society Foundation, George Soros's foundation. They give $1 million, and then Indivisible is funding the signs and the transportation for these protests, and then Antifa then takes this large gathering and uses that as an opportunity to then instigate police, use that as a power vacuum. And yeah, so it's like symbiotic.
So funding is a huge part. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
Well, I wanted to sort of recap 2020 because 5 years ago to me seems like I remember it very clearly since I was on the ground, but maybe some people at this table weren't even in the news world then, and those who are listening and watching, that was a long time ago. The riots were so sustained, violent, and organized. I cannot overstate that. Like in Portland, I saw it in Seattle in particular. They had like brigades within the riot mob. So right now, people might be after some of the people at this table went to Portland. Now the national media, even the international media, they're showing up. They're saying, "Look, it's completely fine." Yeah. 12 in the afternoon outside the Portland Ice facility, or at night.
They're never there at night. Never.
They're showing up at night now, but they weren't there when things were really bad before. So a snapshot of one night can be misleading from these the legacy media. And they're capturing footage of like people in these animal costumes. There's one, his name is Seth, who's been wearing the frog one. And it's meant, the costumes it serves a propaganda purpose. Like, it's meant to make on a photo or a short video clip, it makes that demonstration look like a family-friendly children's type of event. Nothing dangerous. Don't think about the violence that happened before. It kind of whitewashes everything that had been happening since June. In 2020, Antifa, they used a similar tactic. They didn't use costumes at that time. They had their female comrades wear these yellow shirts, and they recruited women leftists to come and stand at the front of the riot, and they hooked arms, and they called themselves Wall of Moms.
Frontline
Right,
moms.
with the yellow shirts.
Frontline
Yellow
moms.
shirts. And what I recognized many of them. So they weren't in black blocs, so they were wearing masks, but you could see their eyes and hairs. And I recognized some of them as these are the same. Some of them were wearing were involved in violent militancy in the other nights. And surely enough, when the cameras weren't pointed on them, some of the so-called Wall of Moms people would go up and try to tear off the plywood that was on the U.S. federal courthouse. So this was a literal insurrection against the U.S. government. People would throw in explosive devices, bombs, and Molotov cocktails. They tried to set the building on fire. It was besieged night after night for an entire month.
With federal agents inside.
Yes, and they had a team. There was also, so the Wall of Moms was at the front. These were the human body shields, and that's where all the cameras would face them. Behind them would be the people in the black bloc who would throw the projectile weapons. And they brought things that were meant to look not very dangerous, like a water bottle. Well, the water bottles were frozen. What do you think happens when that's thrown at somebody's head with force? They had lasers, so it looked like, oh, cool, a laser light show. No, when you have 50 people directing these lasers at the eyes of an individual officer, you get injuries that can damage the eye permanently. And there were dozens of federal agents whose eyes were injured. And on the laser subject, right now, an Antifa blog in Portland has put out flyers and put out posts online calling for their comrades to try to aim all their lasers at the pilot that flies the DHS helicopter over the ICE facility.
Are these like the Blackhawks over the...
Yes, they're trying to cause a crash, kill people. So they're using some of the tactics they learned before. They don't have as many people, but they have so much experience, and they're emboldened because they weren't held accountable.
Yeah, the frontline moms. I mean, Washington Post, wall of moms inspired by Portland protesters face off intense protest in Portland. It's like that they glorified these frontline moms, and it's like, yeah, you're putting lipstick on a pig, basically.
Well, and that's even still something. I remember I was having a conversation with someone in my family who's pretty lefty the other day, and I was saying this Antifa stuff, and I was talking about what was going on at the White House, and she was like, well, isn't it just a bunch of moms? And I was like, no, it's not. You're remembering a headline that was also just fake.
Well, they're so lucky that they have the entire media machine backing them up, comedy, entertainment, whatever it may, late night comedy, whatever it may be. They have all of that backing them up. So all they really need is those little movements, right? Those moms or the people in the costumes to use as propaganda. So you can say, oh, well, look, it's like this. So I was talking to Andy on the way over here. And what you'll notice is Democrat politicians, commentators, whatever it may be, are saying, oh, really? I mean, Antifa doesn't seem dangerous. Look, these people are wearing costumes. And it's like, when we're having this conversation, we're talking about 2020. We're talking about 2021. We're talking about over the last 4 years. We're talking about now, right? And it's all of that mixed together that forms our views on these left-wing militants, right? Not just one little photo or one little video of 5 minutes with some guy in a costume dancing in front of police officers, right? Because if the video was just by itself and that was the only thing, you'd probably look at that and you say, yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, well, they had this guy that was strategically placed when Kristi Noem was up on the rooftop there at the ICE facility. There was this guy in this chicken costume that was in the middle of the crowd that was outside. And they kept saying, "Oh well, look, there's nothing happening out here. It's really light. There's this isn't a riot or whatever." Well, the reason that there were so few people out there when Kristi Noem was there is because Portland police cleared the block, like they should do every single night.
Like Gavin Newsom did for President Xi when he came in.
Exactly, precisely. That way,
There's
they could not have
when she showed up, and for California the same.
They wanted to make sure that they had it under control, so that the pictures that came out from Kristi Noem's visit did not look like that there was that there was lawlessness outside the ICE facility. Now, there is no reason that this was the proposal that DHS made, which doesn't seem that it's too far out there. Just give them a place where they can protest. They're not saying that you can't protest. They're just saying you can't protest in the middle of the street and block our agents and hamper deportations. Like, we give you a zone over here where you can protest, not in the middle of the street. I mean, Portland police could do that very, very easily if they actually wanted to, and that would solve most of these problems, but they don't want to.
That's interesting. That's like during the Biden administration, you had all of this nonsense about, and even before, free speech zones on college campuses, and conservatives were like shunted into these little corners of campuses where they could talk about, things like pro-life and all kinds of other stuff. But they're not willing to put protesters who are violently attacking law enforcement. Like, you can have part of the block. You can't have the whole block.
Right.
But a bunch of things were just mentioned, and I want to talk about them. So you're talking about how mainstream media, for the most part, you brought up the Washington Post in 2020. There's been a lot of that even this summer. This has been glossed over. We saw CNN's Erin Burnett, Burnett, just on Wednesday night after the roundtable, which was so compelling. She went on air and she started talking about how Antifa wasn't even real because they don't have a visible leadership structure. She's expecting someone to get out there and be like, I'm Antifa, we're going to go protest DHS. And that's, not what happens.
You know why they don't have a centralized leadership structure? It's because they've learned, these are far less violent extremists who've learned from the mistakes from the Weather Underground, Black Liberation Army, and other communist terrorist groups in the 60s and 70s, which young people today have no idea even existed, that for a period of time in America, there were terror cells carrying out bombings, killings, jailbreak-ins, shooting people dead, manufacturing bombs at home and exploding buildings. And these were centralized groups.
Exploding the Capitol. They set off a bomb in the Capitol.
So many terror attacks that people just aren't aware of that were done by the left just two generations ago. So learning from those mistakes, the militants today say we cannot organize in that type of way. It's too easy to you take out like a leader or several key figures, and then the whole group basically kind of falls apart. Now, the Antifa organize in a decentralized way, autonomously. And I bring up the example of radical Islam because people are more aware of it. It's been around, terrorism has been around longer in that regard. Antifa is an ideology. So when Christopher Wray, former FBI director, said that at a hearing several years ago, he was not wrong. When Biden said that during a debate, it's not wrong, it's just incomplete. I mean, yes, it's an ideology. Neo-Nazism is an ideology. Fascism is an ideology. Communism is an ideology. What matters is how people organize around that ideology, right? And it can manifest in very different ways. Radical Islam can include international terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, ISIS. Where there's leadership, who's at the top. And then it can also be groups like Muslim Brotherhood, who are part of the Islamist ideology as well, and they function as charities in a number of Western countries, nonprofits. And then there are those who consume the extremist propaganda that's online and become a lone wolf, radicalized individual and takes direct action. So the Antifa ideology manifests in all those ways. And some of the groups don't even have the name Antifa in it, but they are an Antifa group. For example, going back to 2020, the group that organized the riots in Portland and Seattle was the Youth Liberation Front. They don't have Antifa in the name. They were an Antifa group. So my annoyance with people in the media and others who say, well, who's the leader of it? Oh, I don't see a registered entity. It's like, that's the point. That's why they organize in that way, so that they can just fade into the back and say there's no organized structure, so that they can continue carrying out acts of organized violence. Just look at the footage of the riots. That's extremely organized. They have sources of funding through crowdfunding. They're supported through mutual aid groups, so-called mutual aid groups that give them food, bail support, so access to pro bono lawyers. And a lot of those organizations get funding either at the federal level or at the state level. So taxpayers are funding Antifa. I keep bringing that up. Also, the rioters are encouraged to get arrested, actually trained and encouraged to get arrested. And the reason for that is so that they can become party to mass lawsuits against police departments and cities for huge settlements. And in liberal jurisdictions, they just settle, no problem. 1 million, 10 million, 20 million. There are some rioters getting hundreds of thousands because they were arrested and they alleged police brutality in Portland or many of these other cities. So there's this whole apparatus. Mainstream media is very important to them. That's why they're so angry about Paramount buying Free Press and placing Barry Weiss at editor-in-chief of CBS, because they need the fellow travelers who work in ideological fellow travelers who work in mainstream media to mainstream their propaganda. And they need stenographers for their lies there. And they need the useful idiots as well who parrot certain things out of ignorance.
Yeah, like Aaron Burnett the other day.
Yashar Ali,
Yeah. And you also see, so we've seen a lot of mainstream media covering up for this stuff. You're calling them fellow travelers, fellow ideological travelers in this Antifa journey. And you also see a lot of times mainstream media claiming that you guys aren't journalists, right? I saw a spat that.
Hassan.
Yeah, I saw this spat with Savannah Hernandez, who of course is terrific.
Yeah. Literally puts her life on the line to get stories and is being criticized by this guy.
Yeah.
He has a nice British accent, so.
Right. So exactly.
So you
It
had-
adds like 20 IQ points to Americans.
Why? How does this get? How is this let to stand? How is this legitimized? This idea that you guys aren't journalists. Savannah's, saying she's not a journalist. You have, the Portland police recently called Katie Daviscourt a counter-protester as opposed to calling her a journalist. What is this obsession with trying to label you guys as something that you're not?
I mean, it's the only way that they can delegitimize what we're saying is to say, no, you're not actually a journalist. You're an agitator or you're a counter-protester. I don't believe. I know they want to say that email was an accident. I absolutely don't believe that was an accident. That is total BS. I mean, counter-protester is a. Never once did I see Katie out there going up and confronting these people on the streets out in front of the ICE facility and yelling at them. And I mean, that would be a counter-protester, right? I've never seen her do anything like
No,
that.
I think they were just trying to insult her.
Yeah,
in their,
of course.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to insult her for sure. But
Nobody
I don't
takes
know.
Mehdi Hassan's opinion seriously on this issue, luckily.
Well,
I mean, nobody...
Fortunately, a lot of people do on the other.
Nobody reasonably. No reasonable person is going to do that. So, I don't know. I still think he can be deported.
I think what Brandy Cruz did at the, or what she said at the Antifa roundtable was spot on, and she said a lot of great things. But one of the things that she was talking about was that roundtable was for the administration to hear everyone out. That roundtable was for the American people to listen to. That roundtable was not for the hyenas in the media. Like, that's not who it was for. She called them out before they even ran with their stories. She said, you guys are just going to say that we're activists. You guys are going to say that we're MAGA influencers. You guys are going to say that Antifa's not real. And what did they do after, right? They did exactly that. Because it's the same tired game that they always play, right? This group that was responsible for inciting a majority, or I don't know, about a solid half of the most violent riots in 2020 and 2021. Antifa, the group that was responsible for most likely starting most of those. You're talking billions of dollars of damage to communities all over the country. You're talking about thousands of officer casualties. You're talking about, dozens of people dying because of those riots. So, I mean, to keep running with the idea that, it's just an ideology. It's just that's all it is. And there's no other physical activity attached to it. That's all it is. Like, I'm Antifa. You'll see people saying that, right? Because for some reason they think that means that there's nothing happening on the ground.
You'll
It's
see
the same
a lot
game
of
that
that.
they want
People
to play.
saying, "I'm Antifa."
You'll see
right?
that, yeah, because they're trying to take away from the actual militants on the ground that are
Muddy the
committing the
waters.
violence and all that stuff, right?
So we were talking about the media a little bit, and I got this email yesterday that I sent to we have a little, Antifa, what is it called? Antifa fever dream? I don't know, some sort of group chat that we
group
have.
chat?
Yeah. And so I got this, I believe it was the Oregonian that sent this email. It seemed really bitter about the fact that we had brought a national spotlight to the story, and they've been spending how long now trying to shut the whole thing down, pretend like it's a peaceful dance party in the street. Who are these people? What are they trying to accomplish? This Oregonian, I think Oregon Live. I mean, there are multiple local
There's a couple
outlets.
of them.
What do you know about that?
Well, the Oregonian / Oregon Live is a paper record in Portland. They're meant to be the main liberal establishment paper. They have the most resources. Can I discuss the?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
so a reporter reached out to you, and the second half of the email of the media inquiries was about how, in that person's opinion, you didn't follow Society Professional Journalist guidelines on the content that you put out, which is not her role to do that.
Yeah.
She's not your editor. She's not your boss. So it was meant to just be condescending and rude. And did you post it publicly yet?
No, I haven't, but I should.
Was getting kicked in the ditch, was that on the record? Did you ask them if that was on the record?
So, I experienced 6 years ago the delegitimization after I was beaten, actually. There was a whole big, in the media, liberal media, those who referred to me as journalists, they were me as a journalist, they were targeted by left-wing journalists. They said, Andy's not a journalist, he's an agitator. The implication was that I somehow brought the near-death experience on me when I was beaten and punched and had the...
You have the credentials, though. I mean, you have a journalism degree.
I actually studied political science at Portland State, and I worked for the student paper. I've written for legacy papers. I have a New York Times bestseller. Anyways, the tactic of this person is not a journalist. It's because they don't want the public to listen.
It's the same activism that they're accusing you of. And I mean, that happened all throughout 2020. So Kenosha, Wisconsin, the New York Times reporter went home the day of the shooting because she knew it was going to be dangerous. Which
She knew it was going to be dangerous.
Well, everybody knew it was going to be dangerous by that third day because the whole city or blocks of the city were burning and hundreds of cars, and there were people came in from Chicago looting. And so after the shooting happened, Kyle Rittenhouse shot Joseph Rosenbaum right in front of me. New York Times, I spoke with their forensics guy, that guy named Christian Tribart, and he was trying to piece things together. I spoke to them for like 4 hours in the days after the shooting, and they relied on my reporting for that. Then after January 6th, the New York Times photographer takes a photograph of me. I just lost my phone. I'm pointing at the ground saying phone, and they called me a rioter, and the door of the Capitol had shattered window. I landed on a crowbar when I got knocked to the ground by police. I landed on broken glass. I'm bleeding. And they claimed that I was a rioter who punched a door. So they're implying not only that I cracked that window, but that I'm a rioter, even though I had congressional press credentials. I was allowed to be there, but I look like a knuckle-dragging Trump supporter. They didn't even go to check, oh, yeah, we used this guy's reporting after that shooting in Kenosha. They just instantly called me a rioter.
There was an interesting thing, going back to what we were talking about with, them calling Savannah not a journalist and the rest of it. Cam Higbee had this. Can you pull this up, Tate? Oh, it is up. Okay.
I was literally about to bring this up too.
Yeah.
I'm glad to bring this up.
And he was like, all these people are calling him not a journalist. Hey, Cameron, it's Emily from CNN. This still a good time to give you a call? Hey, Cam, I'm a reporter at NBC News. Are you available for a brief phone interview? I'm interested in hearing the latest about what's happening in Portland with the anti-ICE protests and counter-protests. Let me know if there's a convenient time for a call. Thank you.
They look nice at first.
Hey, Cam. I'm a reporter with KATU News. I'm reaching out because I saw that you said you were attacked by protesters outside of ICE. I'm sorry to hear that you were harmed. Any chance you might be able to interview? Also, are you a DHS employee? Hey, Cam, it's me from the New York Times.
Wait, okay, hold on. Is this what a journalist is? Because these people are absolute losers that don't do any work themselves.
Yeah.
So maybe we aren't journalists. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I saw that and I was just, it's not that surprising, but it is still kind of surprising, And then we also had this moment that I just wanted to play. It's not too long. This was on Wednesday at the White House.
My plea to the entire administration, especially to the DOJ, is every single radical left-winger who was in front of the ICE.
That wasn't the one. Let me get the other one. It's probably right below it. Oh my goodness. How do I not have the right clip?
Was it Sav talking?
It was Sav, and it was when, here it is. I got it now.
The question nobody can answer is why. Why are they doing this? They're like insurrectionists. They're terrible people. But you really wonder why. Why are they doing it? What are they gaining other than they're obviously paid? They're paid a lot of money. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, if I can answer that question. The reason why they're doing it is because the same media that's sitting in this room with us has declared all of us at this table Nazis and fascists, and they've been doing this for years. This is why Antifa feels emboldened to attack us. Now, almost every single person at this table has been threatened with a steel bat. We've been assaulted, we've been harassed, we've been threatened, and that is in huge part due to the media. So my message right now is for you guys. Because 2 years ago, back in 2020, by the way, I was censored for my reporting on Antifa here in Washington, D.C. You were talking about how safe it is now, Mr. President. It wasn't so safe back then. Back in 2020, I watched as a father was being mobbed and surrounded by Antifa members as his terrified, crying children looked on and the police here did nothing. I watched as a woman had her hair violently ripped out of her skull simply for waving an American flag on the streets of Washington, D.C. And by the way, if you guys try to go and find any of this footage, you won't find any of it because Twitter deleted all of it because our president shared my reporting and they deleted my entire account immediately after. So now, if you want to know what happened in 2020, all you're going to see is the media headlines that said that it was fiery but mostly peaceful. Thanks for that one, CNN.
So this is something I thought it was very interesting that the president asked, why is this happening, right? So it was sort of a twofold question. On the one hand, he's asking, why are you guys all getting beaten up for doing reporting? But on the other hand, he was asking, why is Antifa doing this at all? Like, what is the issue? And I think we've talked a little bit about the media and why they're doing it. They're basically handmaidens to this violent leftist organization that has so many deep tendrils, I think, in internationally, in organizations, in NGOs, in not-for-profits, in local police departments somehow. But what is it that Antifa is looking for? Like, why are they why is this enemy doing this? What is it that they want?
I can answer that.
Is it? Is it simply the violent overthrow of the government? I mean, what is it?
Yes, for the ultimate goal is to destroy the United States. Antifa as a movement, it's anarchist communism. Like, people sometimes have just simply branded them as communists. That's not the full picture.
Reality is that it was an extreme.
There are communists in Antifa, but they're more so. The majority of them are anarchists and anarchist communists. And so the violence is done essentially out of nihilism. And that's why there's such brutality in it. Setting buildings on fire when people are inside. Or in the case of, in June, the ICE facility, trying to lock and barricade the doors on the ICE facility and set it on fire when there are people inside. These type of brutal, cruel, subhuman type of acts of violence. And their motto is become ungovernable. Mm-hmm. So they want to destroy not just the U.S. as a nation, but they don't want necessarily replace it with like a communist regime. They want to destroy everything, all the institutions, the concept of nation states. So when they do things like aid in giving out drug paraphernalia, there's a reason for that. In the homelessness, they believe it's an attack. Mass homelessness they view as an attack on capitalism. It's destabilizing to communities. They like that. They know that the money from the drugs that are flowing in, that are killing people, helps foreign and international cartel networks that keeps migrants coming in. All that's meant to destabilize the U.S. They know they don't have the tanks or the type of weapons that can compete with the U.S. military. So their goals are attacking infrastructure and playing a very long game. And they've had a lot of success. I mean, 2016 was quite a big turning point. Antifa in the US have existed for a few decades. They became mainstream in 2016 because the media, and this is why the mainstream media is so important to them, mainstream their message. America had elected a fascist. We need to resist. We need to fight back by any means necessary. And you see in that last 9 years how Democrats and liberals in the mainstream have become much, much more open and tolerant to political violence. Just think of their reactions every time that we've seen killings of individuals on the right or attempted killings. It's been celebrations and encouragements for more, and they make heroes out of those who have done the killings.
Do they want to replace it with anything?
Who's they? Antifa?
Do they want to replace the West or the United States with something else?
They believe that in the absence of nation states, their utopia would be autonomous zones. They've had that type of project. Look at Chaz in Seattle. I was there undercover. There were so many shootings there. People were killed. You know, the people who were killed there, they were black people. And this was meant to...
Black kids, 16 and 19-year-olds.
This was meant to be a refuge for black and brown bodies.
By the way, where were they killed? Because this is the funny part. Well, it's sad.
This is the ironic part.
It's ironic and ridiculous. The first thing that happened in the Chaz was they got the 6-block area because Mayor Durkin and Police Commissioner Carmen Best capitulated a 6-block area in the spirit of quote-unquote de-escalation. So they had their own little fiefdom, and the first thing they did was set up border checkpoints and put armed guards at the borders. So they set up their own borders for their own autonomous zone that is supposedly part of a future where there are no borders. And then those 2 black kids, 16 and 19-year-old, they got shot at those border checkpoints, and nobody was ever charged for those crimes. And I didn't see any of the multinational corporations that are based in Seattle who donated hundreds of millions of dollars to BLM. They didn't donate anything to their families because
No,
it's
I
not
remember
politically
mostly just
expedient, right?
seeing a grieving father on the news.
And that
trying to
dad,
get
dad
justice.
actually caught a bullet like 2 years later. He didn't die, but he
That's
got,
insane. He was shot as well.
yeah.
That's awful.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there also an issue with, because it was they set up communes, right, where you could go and get food and stuff, but they would continue to get raided by homeless people, and you know they'd
Oh,
take
they
all
set
the
up their
food
little
away.
No
mutual
cop
aid.
co-op.
No
mutual
cop
aid
co-op.
kitchens?
No cop co-op.
Was it the mutual aid kitchens?
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
stuff?
There's a really dark side to this homeless outreach where Antifa will give food and supplies. It's not just to be charitable. In the context of the riots, these encampments where the food is provided to homeless people, they groom the homeless people to become rioters. And if you look through some of the exhibits that's in the ongoing lawsuit right now by the state of Oregon, the city of Portland against the U.S. government and the Trump administration to block troops from being used for federalized service in the state of Oregon, one of the exhibits included, I don't know if it was on accident, there were hundreds of pages of things. It was a write-up from the Portland police, and it described how a older homeless man at the ICE facility in the summer went up and told the officers there, can you please just let me shake this because I'm being threatened to do it by the Antifa and the mob. So
It's like Riot Ribs. Riot Ribs raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in the summer of 2020, and they're just, you'd see the tents that were allowed to basically be set up right across the street from the federal courthouse. The city was allowing these tents to stay there, and you could see the shields, the wooden shields outside of the tents. So these people who were homeless were actively participating in the
it
riot.
attracted vagrants. Another thing why Antifa particularly target the vagrants to be rioters is because if they get arrested, they get charged, prosecuted, it's of no consequence to the actual network. This is like just riffraff. So in 2020, when the courthouse was besieged in downtown, they were giving out explosives to like teens and youths and homeless people and inciting them to throw it out the building. There was one teenager who was federally convicted. He had no idea who the person in Black Bloc was that handed him the explosive. He took it and he threw it, and it was a bomb. And so that's like, I hope people realize how like depraved and wicked these militants are.
Yeah.
And there's so much propaganda and lies about it. The frog costumes, the animal costumes, Wallermans, all propaganda in service of violent militancy, violent extremism.
So this guy,
Terrorism.
just on that topic of the homeless people, real quick. I believe his name is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Richard Hernandez. Is it? Who's the?
Yes, that's the name.
Okay.
You're talking about the man who was burning a flag?
Burning the flag. I talked to Portland police about him. There was one liaison that I will say that was very much on my side in this entire situation, like against the wishes of the rest of the police bureau, it seems. And he kind of gave me a little bit of insight on this guy, where Portland police actually believe that he's being used, as you're saying, by these thugs, these Antifa thugs that are out on the street, using him to commit crimes, sometimes violent crimes, because they know that he won't be prosecuted for it. And
Why won't he be prosecuted just because he's some homeless
he's an
guy
insane homeless man. I mean,
Right.
you can hear him in the background. Pretty much every video of me that people were taking, you can hear this guy in the background screaming threats at me. And so they believe he's being compensated in some way and that he's being used because he's mentally ill. I haven't been able to confirm that, but it sort of falls in line with what you're saying.
Those are some of the scarier ones too, because they have literally nothing to lose as well. And so those are the ones you definitely have to watch out for. I remember the federal courthouse, the Marco Hatfield Federal Courthouse. Across the river from that courthouse was that big encampment in 2020, I think it was, big homeless encampment. A lot of the people that were rioting there each night were definitely over at that homeless encampment because we went to go check it out, and they spotted us.
Homeless encampment
For sure.
Like, literally,
I don't know if it's still there.
Yeah, but the state set up a place for
It was a shelter.
Yeah, it was a big,
Yeah,
it was a
shelter.
huge like rectangle block.
There was a video. So Trumpet Man would sound the trumpet.
Wasn't he over there? Wasn't he in the homeless
so that's
shelter?
what I'm getting to is the Trumpet Man. Like I mentioned him extensively in the book. Number one, Jorge interviewed the Trumpet Man, and the Trumpet Man revealed that his own dad is a cop, and so his dad is a cop. Obviously he had problems with his dad growing up, and now he's lashing out in that way. But the trumpet man who was at all these riots, then 2 months later in like October, November, there's a video of a guy filming that encampment, massive encampment, and he's like, "Oh, it's Trumpet Man, it's Trumpet Man."
I remember that one.
Yeah, like most of the people out there.
For people that don't know, Trumpet Man was what would you consider him? An Antifa influencer? You would show up some nights and like
He was in Seattle,
some of the famous Antifa rioters would show up, and everyone would be like, "Oh my gosh, it's this person! Can we get a photo with you?" Like they have their own little like political climate and celebrity groups within like their own movements. I was going to say, outside of the ICE detention facility, the other day when I was there, I was talking to a few of the...
This was Portland?
Yeah, this is Portland. I was talking to a few of the people that they're setting up... They have like a little camp on the sidewalk. They just basically took over public property, and it's theirs for some reason. And a handful of them are sleeping there. And so I'd ask them what they're doing for work, or if they are working or anything like that. And at least the couple that I was talking to, they were noticeably mentally ill, perhaps drug addicts. I'm not exactly sure. But the girl I think it was a girl that I was talking to, she was saying that no, she lives on the street. She sleeps there, and that's what she does. And so a lot of these people still are homeless that are there at their encampment outside of the ICE detention facility in Portland. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen what happens when you try to walk down that sidewalk that they've claimed is theirs?
I watched what happened to you. They were a little bit better with me, but they didn't know who I was at all. And it was during the... Did you try it at nighttime?
Yes.
Okay, nighttime they're much more territorial over the property that they've annexed. Daytime, I was kind of going in there with the camera, checking out what they had and asking questions. But they were telling me like, oh yeah, the school, there's elementary school right next to us that they set up shop at. That's what that property is, I believe. That's what I was told. Yes. They ended up leaving because of the constant rioting. The property next to it apparently isn't renewing their lease because of the constant rioting. The apparently low income apartments across the street, I was told it's at like 35%.
That's correct.
Occupancy. And when I was talking to Antifa about that, they were saying, well, it's because of ICE and the Republicans that are showing up every night to provoke us. And I'm thinking to myself, hold on. So all of these people are leaving because of the constant rioting, and it's everyone else's fault and not your guys' fault for rioting. That's basically how they're looking at this. Yeah. Right? Everything is everyone else's fault and not theirs for rioting over 100 days straight.
Well, when they kill people, they say it's the victim's fault.
Right.
Well, hell, even the Portland police say the same thing. The Portland police chief saying that it was my fault because I was filming, and that was agitation. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're going to talk about victim blaming, I would say that's probably one of the best ways that they use to spin the narrative.
Yeah, no. It's not your fault for filming zoo animals. It's the zoo animals' fault for misbehaving when you're filming them.
So Kristi Noem had said that she was pledging a lot more government support for DHS in Portland, including new buildings for DHS activity. Do you think there's going to be protests at anything that they set up in Portland? Do you think this is
what's funny is that the facility that they're protesting at isn't even a detention facility for the most part. It's got like 4 cells in it.
Right.
It's a large administrative building. The actual ICE facility isn't there. They're not. A lot of these people don't know that. If you walk up to them and tell them that, they'll be like, "Huh? Really?"
Yeah. So they're also just in the wrong place.
They're in the wrong place.
Well, if they are getting new properties and they're expanding, first of all, they can spread that throughout the city. It's very difficult for all of these groups to be so activated that they're showing up to all of those properties, all of those facilities, and having big numbers every night. Yeah, it's very difficult. Unless something big happens and it's in the news, then you get a push, right? You get people energized. And they don't so much have that aside from just the stories that come out. And usually it's just some hoax that comes out about deportations. Oh, well, they're handcuffing babies at night. And you're like... Dude, come on.
That was the stupidest thing.
That was a dad making a joke video with his kid.
Yeah,
the dad's literally a cop.
And they were screaming at it in megaphones up to the rooftop. And so the rest of the crowd is like, oh my God, really? They're handcuffing babies in the middle of the night?
So it's stuff like that that's getting them motivated to show up. When I'm talking to the people outside, just like everyday people that are showing up, not even the Antifa, but just everyday leftists that are showing up at the ICE detention facility in Portland, they would be giving that reason as a reason for showing up and showing their solidarity, right? It's like every single reason that they show up to protest ICE is a hoax.
So these are the leftists who are energized by fake news headlines, show up to basically support Antifa. I may be misquoting, but I seem to remember Che Guevara saying that he would not have been able to do what he did without community support. You're talking about some members of the community who are unhappy about this, people leaving the apartment buildings. I know Katie did some work over the summer. She talked to a woman who essentially sued to try and get the riots to stop.
She did sue.
Yeah,
It
she
went,
did sue.
It went to trial.
And she lost, right?
The judge sided with the Portland police in the city that there was no legal requirement for the Portland police to respond.
Right. So what are the conditions that are making Portland a comfy place for Antifa to do this? And is that spreading in other parts of the country? We saw Savannah Hernandez did a bunch of work over the summer? I don't remember exactly when it was, but in Brooklyn, showing people putting a stop to traffic in order to just cars on the road in some sort of anti-immigration protest, and then being like, oh no, you have to get to work. That's too bad for you.
Anti-ICE protests.
Anti-ICE protests, yeah. We saw in Chicago just recently, people rammed their car into DHS agents, and some of these people were illegal immigrants and affiliated with drug cartels. What are the conditions on the ground that are, and in 2020 also, we saw a groundswell of support from local communities where, Antifa would go in, BLM would go in and stage all of these protests. And then you'd have, a bunch of teenagers start marching around Seattle. You had all of this support. How are they getting this groundswell of support? Do you anticipate something like that, like what we saw in 2020 for this anti-immigration, anti-ICE stuff coming? And how are they able to secure that support where they do have it?
I can speak to this. So I'm from Portland originally, and Portland is an example of what happens when a city, county, and state is completely dominated by Democrats. And so they control everything, all institutions, government, control the purse, the money as well. And even on institutions that are meant to be or required to be apolitical, like prosecutors, police, they get pressured to become politicized. They get rewarded for being politicized in the right way. So in 2020, going back to that, the district attorney who came into power in August 2020 during the riots at its height, he was very progressive. He immediately announced that week he wasn't going to prosecute a whole list of riot-related crimes. And that gave essentially permission to the rioters to do whatever the hell we want. And they did. Mm-hmm. Police did make arrests. The Portland police at that time, they were using things like tear gas and such, making mass arrests sometimes. By the end of the 120 nights of rioting, there were almost 1,000 arrest cases. Well, that goes to the DA's office, and DA's office stamped no complaint, which means that they're dropping the case. They did that to 90% of the cases. And it's not just a DA at that time who's to blame. We had a U.S. attorney in Oregon, so this is under Trump's DOJ in the first administration, by the way, who dropped a lot of the federal cases as well, or gave them sweetheart plea deals.
I remember
Deferred
a lot
resolutions.
of sweetheart plea deal headlines that we had.
The same federal courthouse that was being assailed every single night, which is the irony, though.
And you had city council on the side of the rioters, the mayor who's sympathetic to the leftists, the governor then, the governor now. So it works as a whole machine, and it's replicated in other Democrat-controlled states like Washington State and other places.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they really rely on, like I was mentioning previously, news stories or an individual that they can base their movement off of to get everybody energized and engaged and wanting to show up. So they certainly have, the more that ICE is in the news for whatever hoax is happening, the more they can get people out there. How is it going to compare to 2020 or 2021? One, I do think that they're going to they need to rely on something bigger. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't know, Andy, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I don't know that they'll be able to keep it up nationally as we get closer to winter, just because a lot of these people are fair weather protesters. Maybe they come back next year, but it will start dwindling. This is my guess.
Once the snow is happening.
It's really entertaining to go out there when it's raining and there's just no, but like the fascism stops when the rain comes.
Yeah, right. Like they're no longer Hitler and Nazis because of bad weather, and that's, we don't want to get wet. Right. But I expect it to kind of slow down unless there's something big that happens, and that could happen. I mean, the more that they're interfering with federal operations, the more that they're preventing these officers from doing their jobs, the more opportunities there are, unfortunately, for mistakes or things to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to use that. What was he, a preacher?
He was not. He was an activist dressed as a preacher.
Activist dressed as a.
And then what do all the rags do? They say, "Oh well, a priest has been thrown on the
He was
ground."
definitely
Right,
not a
so-
priest.
so-
He said he was a pastor with some kind of church.
You'll see how they use that stuff,
that-
though.
You can
It's-
call yourself
that's
a pastor.
hopefully get people to show up this
Internet.
weekend. Be like,
Yeah.
did you see he got hit with a pepper ball? I don't know why he's like interfering with federal agents in their duties or whatever. I don't know what he's doing, but he got hit with a pepper ball, and unfortunately, I guess he got hit in the head with it.
Yeah,
It's like
pepper
getting
ball
hit-
ain't bad. I've been hit in the head with it. I got hit. I still have the scars on my arm from the tear gas
like a
shells
paintball gun.
that shot me in the arm and leg.
Yeah.
I didn't sue because I was playing stupid games and I won that stupid prize.
Well, the officers also aren't John Wick. Like they'll fire it.
No,
and
this
maybe
guy
they
was
just-
John Wick. He straight up, you're supposed to shoot the tear gas canisters off the ground. And this is my first night. Talk about your first night in Portland. My first night in Portland, July of 2020. I show up, I'm live on the Daily Caller's Facebook. And
those
this
were good
guy-
live streams that you guys were doing.
Oh
for,
yeah, they were
for a
good.
minute
They
there.
were good.
Those were great live
And
streams.
you can only do it when it's chaotic because otherwise they'll triangulate your position. So they're all out. They're pushing everybody back, and I'm in between the rioters and the police, and I'm like shaking my gas mask because the guy aims the breech loaded tear gas shell right at me. They're supposed to shoot it off the ground, and he just blasts me in the arm. My phone falls on the ground. I'm swearing, and as I go to pick up my phone, he reloads and blasts me again in the leg.
Wait, hold on. He shot a tear gas canister at you?
Oh yeah.
Can't that
Oh yeah.
break
I
your
thought I
arm?
broke my radius. Like I literally
Okay.
thought. I mean, I still had the scar on my arm, and it's a bigger one on my
Are
leg.
they still shooting those? Did they stop? Because those are dangerous.
I don't know. It was not fun. But with that being said, it's like I put myself in that situation.
There were lawsuits from protest rioters complaining that they were shot with rubber bullets.
Yeah, those are worse than the pepper ball. I will say the rubber bullet hurts.
The 40 millimeter?
Yes, 40
But they
millimeters.
were suing
those are
about
scary, too.
they were
Yeah,
suing
those
about
are-
the rubber
well,
bullets.
yeah, the
but
metal
prior
also
to
scary.
that,
Yeah.
The way that the rubber bullets came in is that all of the police departments were required to use less lethal munitions.
Yeah.
And then also apparently you can't use those. Like, what's the deal? How are police officers?
You just have to. It's just going to be hand-to-hand combat from now
They're
on.
just
That's
doing
that's
that.
what they want.
I mean,
Like a dulled
what is
bayonet.
certainly effective is tear gas is effective. Pepper balls are pretty effective too. Whatever they're using in Portland, by the way, those pepper balls. So basically, it's a paintball thing, hard shell, whatever's inside, some chemical irritant.
Yeah.
And whatever they were using in Portland the other day was really strong. I mean, like way spicier
Love those
than I
spicy
remember.
pepper
You get a little
And-
bit of it can be
them on your
shot
pasta.
10 minutes ago, and that wind picks up a little bit. It'll pick it right
They'll
back off
just-
the ground.
They'll just
Oh, yeah.
shoot the ground, and it'll be getting. I mean, it'll.
I
Stick
still
around
have a
for 10 minutes.
backpack that I can't use because it's still covered in pepper balls. Every time I grab it, it's like it gets on my hands again. I'm
Super
like, oh no!
spicy.
Just like flashes me right back to 2020.
But so they have strategy for it. They go around and they just pour water all over it, like the Antifa people do, and then they have. I saw these people when I was up on the rooftop. They had cones, which was interesting. So if there was some sort of like tear gas or something,
Oh, yeah,
on
they
the
put the
ground,
cone over
they
it,
would go
put
up
the
and
water on it.
right?
Yeah.
And what they do in that case is they just start unloading pepper balls on you. But these people just weren't affected by that at all. So I don't know. Maybe they will have to. If it intensifies, they're gonna have to use something more than that.
These left-wing groups, they hold like trainings for their quote-unquote medics and media and all
Medics.
that stuff that they have, but all of it revolves around rioting and what to do. I don't know. I mean, in 2020 and 2021, like you would never get an interview with somebody that you would consider Antifa, but I was talking to a medic the other day, quote unquote medic that they had, and she was spilling the beans, and she kind of realized halfway through the conversation that I was asking all these probing questions about their tactics and how often they're holding,
You have this
trainings.
clip up.
I actually not yet. I will release it though because it's pretty interesting because she's saying, oh yeah, we train once a month and mainly having to do with what to do at riots and how to take care of people, and I'm just listening to this, like, I can't even believe you're spilling all this. But once again, a lot of these people, there's probably different categories. Andy, I don't know if you have like a breakdown of who you consider kind of Antifa and who these people are. You'll have like mentally ill, you'll have homeless, you'll have drug addicts, you'll have
basement
trans,
dwellers.
you'll have it's kind of like this big mixture of people. Some are threatening, some aren't threatening. The homeless people that have nothing to lose, that are violent, those ones are scary because they don't care. And so, you know, I don't know where she was on that, but she was definitely, you know,
Was this an
an odd one,
or was it one of the? There was one that was dressed in military fatigues that had the medic and the trans flag next to it, which was. She ran up to me with pepper spray and was like, "You can't film medics. That's illegal in Oregon." And somebody came up behind her and knocked the pepper spray out of her.
Yeah, they make
hands.
up these rules that you like somehow have to abide by. I don't know what's going on there. No, this girl was wearing, you know, their yellow vest people that they have.
Is that the National Lawyers Guild?
No,
Those are the green
no,
hats.
That's a topic.
Those are the
Because
green
I
hats.
remember when I used to go to protests when I was like a leftist, and I would go to protests. Mostly I protested the Iraq War and the Patriot Act, so I would still protest both those things. But anyway, the National Lawyers Guild would come out, and you'd like end up talking to National Lawyers Guild people, and they'd tell you what to do. And we didn't have cell phones, but you know, they were like, if you did have cell phones, you know, delete all your contacts, put them somewhere else, write phone numbers on your arm, because you're not going to be able to. They're going to take your stuff, so you want to be able to make your phone call. And they were very, they would be very aggressive. Like, I remember marching around with like the transit union on, was it 57th Street in New York City, and Jerry Springer was there, and that was pretty funny. But I think I still have photos of that. But you were recently talking about the National Lawyers Guild, and even all these years later, I was surprised to find that these guys were like the epitome of, you know,
They're out there for sure.
far left crazy people.
How effective are they?
So the National Lawyers Guild is probably the most important support.
I saw them
auxiliary group.
de-arrest people back in like 2003, but yeah, anyway, go ahead.
NLG is the most important group that supports Antifa because they provide the legal aid, and they have a huge infrastructure for it. It's a nonprofit, and they have chapters at basically all the law universities across the United States. So students, radical leftist students who are in a JD program, become members, and they volunteer to be, they say, legal observers. You see them wearing a green hat or a green helmet now. And when I first saw them years ago, back then, and I knew nothing about them, I was very naive. I was thinking, oh, these were independent legal observers just keeping an eye on things and making sure that people's civil rights weren't violated. No. They're there to aid in the rioting itself. They themselves usually do not commit crimes or smarter than that, but they're there to record things selectively, gather evidence for the lawfare against police in cities to try to restrict police's ability to use certain tools. For a time in Portland, and this might be in effect now, for example, Portland police were barred by the city council from using tear gas. I don't know if that's still in effect, but there was like, anyways, the NLG also provides bail funds, and it's an old group. It goes back to the time when communists were quite active politically in the US, and they were providing legal counsel and aid to them. That's like kind of their origins. On their website today, they have a post that's been up for years explaining that they don't condemn political violence, that they say fascism has to be defeated by any means necessary. And they're
On whose website?
NLG.
No way.
Yes.
Well, I don't know why I'm
That's
surprised
wild.
about that. But
Who
still.
bankrolls them?
That's a huge question. Yeah,
Well, you can pull up their
they're like
their tax
990s.
filing. Yeah, that one. It's they're required to fill it out. They have a lot of money, and then so NLG is the biggest one, but they have like affiliate groups that function the same way in a region or a state level. In Oregon, there are several of these. They get state funding, taxpayer funds through the grants from the state. One gets money from Tides, which is Soror's.
Oh,
They're getting money from the state to fight the state?
Yes.
Yeah, they get grants.
Andy,
Fantastic.
did you happen to give any information about that to the Trump administration the other day? Because all of these little things, if we can get these at the forefront of the conversation, whether they, maybe they can't shut that down, but maybe they can create consequences for states using taxpayer dollars going to these groups.
So, we were each given an opportunity to speak maximum 5 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes. So none of us could get into the granular of anything.
Yeah.
And
I know you were giving them some documentation, though.
Yes, there was. I didn't mention the NLG on that. I kept it shorter. But that's part of, the Antifa apparatus has to, it's big. And it includes the nonprofits is a huge part of it. That's why over and over we see even the suspects who are prosecuted because they did things like felony arson or stabbing somebody, like really serious felonies, they get out with sweetheart deals because they have free legal representation that's funded by taxpayers specifically far left terrorists.
This is something that came up in the... Oh, go ahead.
Well, just wanted to add this. I actually responded to your post about the. I didn't know much about the National Lawyers Guild until I guess when I lived in Austin at the time. This was last year in the summer. Me and my ex-girlfriend lived down there, and we were covering the
Nice city.
Yeah, parts of it.
Okay.
They're turning it into a hellhole. But anyway, so we're at UT Austin where there were protests happening there over. I believe they were over Israel or something. So you had. These National Lawyers Guild people in the green hats that are down there, and my ex-girlfriend was recording the unrest that was going on there at UT Austin. And this NLG chick came up, grabbed my girlfriend's phone, and chucked it on the ground. And it shattered the entire screen, and the phone, the touch screen didn't work anymore or anything like that. And UT Austin's general counsel saw it happen, and so he actually went and helped us file with police against this woman. We knew who she was and everything. We had her name, had her picture, and the Travis County DA declined to prosecute the case.
Why?
So,
they just thought...
because it's Travis County and it's Austin.
They just didn't care.
Yeah. So, I mean, you say that a lot of times they're not committing crimes. It's like one of the only encounters I've ever had with them is when they committed a crime by taking my girlfriend's phone and chucking it on the ground intentionally, spiking it.
Wrong
Right,
spike.
spiked
Yeah.
it.
A lot of these groups are really lucky that they get babied by their local leadership, by conservatives that they encounter, if I'm being totally honest with you. I mean, they're really lucky that people have so much... I don't know what the word is, tolerance for their behavior, because you have one conversation with these people, not even Antifa. I mean, you have one conversation with the groups, was it 5051, who's I believe funded by Indivisible, who is funded by
5501? 55, isn't that?
I don't know.
They do
I
that
don't know
weird
quite.
thing.
It's 50501.
Yeah.
What is that? 50 states, 50 cities, one protest? Is that what it stands for?
like
because it sparked up when they started doing
I
the
remember hearing
No
about it
Kings
when
protest.
Tim mentioned it, and he was like, they do it like that so that it's hard to look up. Because you wouldn't look up 5051 as 50501.
For sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
But they're the ones that put on a lot of the boomer protests that you guys see all over the country.
With the
And
folk singers.
I don't know about that, but in Orange County,
A bunch of old white people.
for sure. In Orange County,
Little
where I'm
gray
from, they do a
bobs.
protest every single day. And, even these people, they're I don't even know what my point of bringing that up was. I was talking about the 50501. I was so fixated on that. What were we just talking about?
Well, we were going to start talking about you were talking about the National Lawyers Guild.
National Lawyers
I have
Guild.
more to say on
I'll come back
Travis
to it. I'll come
County.
back to it.
But I
lost
also
my
wanted
thought.
to talk about funding. I mean, if you want to...
Well, I mean, SPLC's Southern Poverty Law Center organization, nonprofit, has 500 millions in assets. Smears targets on the right, has a hate watch list, creates lists of people to target. One of their attorneys, one of their staffers, an NLG member, was arrested at a really violent Antifa riot in the Atlanta area in 2023, I believe. And he was charged with domestic terrorism along with 60 other individuals. So talking about NLG a moment ago and criminality, I'm also aware that members of the NLG, they aid Antifa in doxing individuals because These are law students. They have access very easily to court records, property records. So that's how they're able to get very personal information that's usually, for the layman, a bit more difficult to gather. They can get all that.
Oh, because they have the whole law library at their disposal with
That's right.
all of those internet resources,
and all the subscriptions
Lexis
that are
and
very
all the rest
expensive.
of it. Yeah, Nexus.
So they get that information. They provide it to Antifa. So people ever wondered, like, how did they find out like everything about myself, my spouse, my children, properties that we owned or properties we used to live in? All that information they get through members of the NLG.
Yeah,
I actually remember what I was going to say.
Oh, go for it.
Because we were talking about, people documenting people committing crimes or anything, and they're 100% selective. My point of bringing up the boomers, right, was even they have the shortest fuse, where they'll full on assault you, they'll assault my camera guy, they'll and not all the time. I'm in Orange County, right? So you have a bunch of white old boomers and whatnot, but they'll grab your camera gear and they'll misbehave all around you, and this is when you're being nice to them. I mean, my strategy is kill them with kindness.
Right.
And we are so respectful. We are way more respectful than we need to be, and they still have the shortest
you do a
fuse
great job with that, by the
ever.
way. I'll watch your
Thank you.
videos, and I'm like, and he's still being nice.
I genuinely
Okay.
like people. I like people, and I'm fairly happy, right? So I don't let them ruin my day. And to be quite honest with you, I mean, it's like to watch people have that short of a fuse. It is kind of funny. I mean, you're just like, how did you get this far? What happened along the way that made you act like this? But my point is, even the boomers have the shortest fuse. So these Antifa groups, these more left-wing, militant, aggressive groups. I mean, you say one tiny thing, you treat them 1/10 the way that they treat you, and they will snap. And back to my original point, they are lucky that conservatives are so kind to them, and people in local leadership is so tolerant of their awful behavior.
Well, is it lucky or is it sort of coordinated in terms of local leadership, which tolerates this stuff?
I just mean that their political opposition is not morally bankrupt, and I think that they're good. Conservatives, I think, across the board are pretty darn good people. And even if you're not like hardcore conservative, center right, just normal.
You're sort of upholding Judeo-Christian values that the boomers, in their haste to rebel against their parents, ditched along the way, helping to destroy the civil society in America.
For sure. It's definitely like an entire party that is at this point just completely morally bankrupt. And you're seeing that in the younger generations as well when it comes to the left wing. Is you see those polls, how many polls have come out, celebration of murdering Elon Musk, Donald Trump, celebrating murdering their political opposition. I mean, it's tenfold. It's 10 times the amount that conservative polls have shown. And those are like, those aren't like conservative pollsters showing that data. It's across the board. There's countless polls showing this when it comes to left wing celebrating the murder, the brutal violence against their political opposition. It's horrifying.
But the focus on the anti-ICE protests and riots, I hope people don't forget that just a few months ago, people were shooting up Tesla stores and setting them on fire.
Firebombing them. Yeah.
And also
It's
the
so
reports-
frequent that I think people do forget. I mean, I forget about that when I'm talking about that stuff on the street because it's like every single month it's something new.
That's when
There's a new
violence
trend
is
of violence.
normalized.
Yeah, so there's two things that I still want to talk about. One is the normalization of left-wing violence that you just mentioned, Andy, because I think that is going on. And so, it's sort of like the normalization of crime. People in D.C., we were talking about this last night. Trump was cracking down on crime in D.C., and it is a totally different vibe now when you walk around D.C. than it was 6 months ago. Now you walk around D.C. and it doesn't feel like you're a target. It doesn't feel like there's hordes of teenagers just looking to hurt people. You don't see tons of homeless people where you think, oh, that guy's going to jump up and be crazy. You don't see, it's not like that.
Every Saturday night in Washington, D.C., there was something especially in the summertime.
Right.
Always something bad going on. Always massive mobs of
Scary.
kids.
It would be scary. If you walked around over in the, where there's stuff, I would
Navy
take
Yard.
my
Navy
son
Yard.
to-
Navy
yeah,
Yards.
I would take my son.
That's
to,
where all the
there's
nice cars are.
Yeah, and there's a good
Yeah.
concert venue that I've gone to a couple of times. I forget what it's called, the Anthem or
Anthem,
something.
yeah, Anthem. That's on the
a
wharf.
nice concert venue. But you walk around to get there, and you're like, oh, there's 20 teenagers. I'm like anyone, I'm scared of 20 teenagers.
Yeah.
I was scared of 20 teenagers when I was one of them because I was always with 3 teenagers,
Right.
not 20.
That's why I drive a stick shift car.
Yeah,
You drive a stick shift and it's not stealable.
Wait.
Right, they
Let's
don't
None of
want
the
it.
young kids, nobody under the age of 18 can drive stick shift.
Back,
let's just-
back
I just wanna-
a few
okay,
months ago,
yeah.
you had no-go zones for Ubers, where if you were in that area, the Ubers wouldn't.
I was
pick
right
you
there
up.
when that guy got killed. That Uber driver, he got tased and then the car flipped.
Do you guys both live in D.C.? Or
I did. I
Was that the 2
years.
teenage girls who
That was the
carjacked?
yep,
and he was
that's
like
exactly right.
Bangladeshi or something
Yep,
like that.
yep.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So what they were doing is they were ordering Ubers using stolen phones, so that
Yeah.
somebody else's identities.
Yep.
They'd order it to an area. They'd order the Uber Black, and the Uber Black would end up in that area. They'd get in the vehicle and then they'd rob
They tased him. He slammed on the gas. And then the craziest part of that is that if you look at the video, and I was talking to the mom of one of the kids who was telling the cops they didn't do anything. And the car's literally flipped on its side. The guy's got draped over him. He's dead. But the guy is writhing on the ground. The car is just flipped. He's been ejected from the vehicle. And one of the girls who caused the accident by tasing the guy is saying, "Oh, my phone's in the car. I need to get my phone."
Right,
So
I
the guy's
remember
literally
that.
dying on the ground, and she's looking for her phone.
Yeah, I think you reported on that at the time.
It's like
was that like 8
It was like
months ago, or
it was like 2
like
weeks
a
after I saw the shooting
yeah.
in Kenosha, and I'm like, "What is going?
It was
Why
a
is all this
while
bad
ago.
stuff?"
Oh, that was
following me?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the summer of
similar.
2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is up with the funding, right? This is something that everyone wants to know about. Anytime I talk to people about Antifa, my mom or anybody, they're like, well, where's this money coming from? Anna Paulina Luna tweeted out the other day a clip from the White House roundtable. And she said, and this, you guys were there, funders include Soros Open Society, Arabella Advisors, Tides Network, Han-Jorg Weiss, Neville Royce Singham with ties to Armed Queers SLC, who's being investigated over the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So all of these organizations, I mean, you can even look, in some cases, it'll all go back to like the Ford Foundation, but you can look at these organizations. A lot of them are clearinghouses for money being funneled to left-wing groups. These groups have not-for-profit status, tax designation with the IRS. They're designated as charities. There are very strict rules that the IRS has for tax-designated charities, one of which is that you cannot be advocating any specific political message. You're not supposed to do that. I worked in New York theater for a long time, and that's mostly not-for-profit. There's a couple, for-profit Broadway theaters left. Maybe I think there's 20, maybe there's less than that now. I don't remember exactly, but a lot of these theaters, the public theater, all of them are tax designated charities, and they would go ahead and put on plays that were virulently anti-Republican, anti-Trump, pro-Obama, all of this kind of stuff. And I remember looking at it and being like, okay, so all of my friends are setting up theater companies that are basically so that their rich parents can give them money for free so that they can do their shows. And these shows are completely political. Yeah. And okay, like at the time, what did I care? But then the more things started to change and I started to look at the world a little differently, I was like, what are the rules for charities? All of these organizations are breaking the charitable rules. I talked to a congressman at one point who was like, oh, I should look into that. And I was like, well, yeah, like you probably should. How are they getting away with this? How much money is coming through here? Where is the money coming from? And how can we put a stop to this? Can we put a stop to this?
Well, it's my understanding that depending on the charity registration, it's more that you cannot advocate for a party or a politician who's running for office, like campaigning for.
What about like when
causes are fine?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so, Planned Parenthood has a nonprofit arm where they do political activism around, they say, healthcare access. It's things like that when, that they are huge cheerleaders for Democrats. So earlier I talked about the nonprofits' connection in the Antifa apparatus. A lot of the money also comes through just simply crowdfunding. People are kind of surprised when I say that because they think it's more clandestine, that it involves like shadowy figures handing out checks to individuals. No, it's not really like that. The the billionaires who are and millionaires, multimillionaires who are giving monies are giving it to their philanthropic arms who then give funds to these nonprofits that are very radical left and aid Antifa in various ways. But for like particular riot-related events, the funding's done on Cash App, Venmo, PayPal even, GoFundMe, Razor, and other fundraising platforms. And they can raise a lot of money. I mean, the bail funds that were raised in 2020 were done through crowdfunding. the Minnesota bail fund, Freedom Fund, I might get the name wrong, the one that Kamala Harris tweeted out support for, they raised tens of millions of dollars just crowdfunding. And this wasn't done secretively or anything. That's the website. Enter your credit card information. A bail fund that was set up in Portland for the rioters was on GoFundMe. Raised hundreds of thousands.
GoFundMe won't let you do that on the conservative side, though. Just
Right,
clear.
Riggs.
But are they also getting their legal defense funded through these nonprofits as well? Like if you have an Antifa rioter that gets arrested for beating a cop with a pole,
Yes, like the NLG and other associate affiliate type of groups.
and so they'll fund the legal.
These are registered nonprofits, so they're able to get grants from the state. Democrats control funding in the state and can give out funds to various so-called nonprofit groups, quite huge funds, and it's used to support this whole insurrectionist cause.
Yeah, they might be able to sell it as like bipartisan or something, but the only people sucking up those funds are violent left-wing activists.
And it's the same as radical Islamism. I mean, if you look at the way that Qatar or Saudi Arabia funds radical Islamist groups, they take the money, they put it in the hands of a charity, and then when it's in the hands of the charity, they say, hey, we gave it to this charity. That charity then goes, so the Open Society Foundation then goes and gives it to Indivisible, and then Indivisible goes and gives it to the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And so it changes hands like 4 different times.
And everyone like Pontius Pilate.
And then
their way out
everybody
of
just
it.
washes their hands of it and says, okay, well, I just gave to Indivisible and they're, above board, but then they give it to the next group, which is the grassroots group. And then you have the 2 different arms, which you have the clandestine behind the scenes. They're organizing in places like Telegram chats and Signal, and they're getting crowdfunded individually. That's like the Antifa side of things. But then you have the forward-facing Party for Socialism and Liberation, for example. They have the big protests. Everybody's out with the signs. 95% of them are all just, normies who have no clue. Mm-hmm. That creates a condition within which there's 5,000 people here. There's 180 cops. Now, if that small group of agitators can agitate the police, a lot of those people who came out with good intentions
For sure.
get tear gassed, and then they go crazy and turn into monkey brain. So it's pretty, it's complicated by design.
Yeah.
So what can be done about it? We were also talking about normalizing violence, which I think is a big problem, right? So in Portland, you have the situation where a woman sued. She went after the local police and saying, you're rioting every night. These people are rioting every night. You're not doing anything about it. The judge sided with the police and said, okay, well, we're going to let them riot every night. There's no big issue there. You had this during the Summer of Love with BLM, where you had such a big part of that movement was to defund the police. That whole defund the police thing was shockingly effective, I think, because it didn't just create conditions where city councils were able to pull funding from police, but it created a completely demoralizing situation for police on the job. There were a lot of resignations after that. People were quitting, and they had a really hard time. They still have a really hard time recruiting police.
It's still like 10, 15, maybe 20% down in certain cities across the country.
Yeah. And so you have some police, some police districts, some police chiefs in areas that are more conservative are saying, like, come here, we'll give you good benefits and good pay, and people are going there. But in Seattle, I know this is something Ari Hoffman has been beating the drums about for years. The recruitment is down incredibly low, right? And then you see with the with ICE, because that's been so rah from the federal government, there's a lot of people applying for that. Military recruitment is up, but in the cities, in the blue cities, defund the police was very effective.
Well, think about what's going to happen here if Zohran Mamdani becomes the mayor of New York City.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like one of the most prominent anti-police advocates in the country right now, especially. And I mean, he's essentially he outranks the police chief in New York City, obviously. And you're going to end up seeing mass. You think the police are choked out now in New York?
He'll probably get rid of Jessica Tisch, who's actually been trying to do a pretty good job.
Yeah, there's no way. I mean, that police force is going to absolutely crumble. I mean, they can go anywhere outside of New York City and get similar benefits, similar pay. Why would you stay in New York City as a New York City cop? I understand there are people on the inside that want to fight to restore the police departments to what they were, to their golden age, let's say, like under Mayor Rudy Giuliani, like they want that back so bad. But if you get the guy at the top that is just refusing to allow it to happen and wants to take a sledgehammer to the entire thing, I mean, I think it's I think it's going to get really bad if Mamdani wins, and it looks like that's going to happen. So
I think he's probably gonna win. Yeah.
I've also neglected to talk about the international aspect of Antifa. And
Oh, I'm glad
funding
you brought
there.
that up. Yeah.
At the White House, I suggested for what could be done potentially internationally is that the State Department could designate the international Antifa as an FTO, foreign terrorist organization. Basically, all of the anti-terror legislation that exists in the U.S. is in the post 9/11 context, so it's outdated, but it's as it is written. There's an international element to it because they're thinking of Al Qaeda, that type of context, but that's what the legislation is. However, Antifa is an international movement, and even though they are decentralized, the American Antifa share tactics and strategies with the Europeans and vice versa, targets of violence, targets of infrastructure to attack. And when one of them commits acts of violence, they're celebrated as a hero. Willem van Spronsen, a Belgian American who shot up the ICE facility in Tacoma in 2019 and died in that attack, he is celebrated by the Antifa in Europe. There's a mural to him in
Really?
Athens, Greece. Yeah.
Do they celebrate Charlie Kirk's killer as well?
I haven't seen that yet because I think Tyler Robinson, as far as I know, wasn't active in a protest network or scene locally, whereas Willem van Spronsen was. He had built up relationships with comrades. So yeah, the FTO designation can do a lot. I mean, then individuals could be sanctioned. And International Antifa, they have a whole recruiting website. People can go on it right now, and it gives instructions on, hey, if you're in the U.S., look at the Torch Antifa network. That Rose City Antifa in Portland, by the way, is part of that. If you're in France, look at La Horde. If you're in this country, look here. And they also link to the International Antifa Defense Fund. And Mr. Mark Bray, who is an academic at Rutgers, he's a teacher of history who wrote the Antifa Handbook. He is a financier of International Antifa.
He denied that.
I don't know how he can deny it when it's in the first few pages of his Antifa Handbook that the proceeds from that book are going to go to this defense fund, which aids criminal suspects and violent Antifa members internationally. Well, he's fled the U.S. now, allegedly on this pretext. This is according to him, on the pretext of him receiving death threats. I don't believe that. He's been in the public eye defending Antifa for years, going back to at least 2017. If he's received pushback or threats or anything, which I condemn, by the way, it would be nothing new. I believe he's fled the U.S. He's fled to Spain, I believe, because he's concerned about criminal prosecutions if the State Department was to designate Antifa as a foreign terrorist organization, and he is on record giving money to International Antifa.
So would that actually make a difference in your opinion? Let's say it does become a foreign terrorist organization, and you have, the Open Societies Foundation dumping money into these various Antifa groups, and whoever funds, say, Rose City Antifa, for example, can you go after them criminally for funding a foreign terrorist organization?
Here are some ways where it could immediately impact. So on the Antifa sites like Rose City Antifa, a number of them, or the Rose City Counter Info blog, which is the Antifa blog that's putting up this event calling for people to use the lasers. Their whole infrastructure in a number of anarchist extremist websites is based overseas. They do that so it's out of the reach of American control. Like, it can't be shut down. It's based usually in Europe. Like, if Antifa was an FTO, then now it opens up way more legal avenues and resources for the U.S. to treat. I mean, it would be international terrorism in that regard. That's an immediate impact I can think of. Domestically, there's still a lot that Antifa can do without the international connection. Obviously, when they organize at the cell level, it's very local. They're on a signal group for a particular direct action riot, and then the message is self-delete. And I know this type of stuff because I followed the SoCal Antifa trial in San Diego very closely last year, and it led it was California that broke up an Antifa cell. I mentioned this at the White House table event, and people aren't familiar with it. Prosecutors in San Diego County successfully, and the only time in history that I'm aware of, broke up an Antifa cell because they identified members of this group, charged all 12 of them. Most of them were charged with felony conspiracy. That was the charge they used, and that's what I recommended to the DOJ, what the DOJ can use because there are federal conspiracy charges. There's racketeering. Because a lot of it is organized crime. And so it's going to be really hard. I mean, the Antifa are instructed so well, have burner phones, pay for things with cash, don't have your contacts saved, obviously, don't even bring phones. They have like a very sophisticated way to sort of mask all of their organizing. But it can be uncovered. I mean, the North Texas Antifa cell is being prosecuted right now for that ambush shooting. And so I urge people to pay very close attention to that because the national media won't.
I want to ask you one more thing.
We actually have breaking news.
Oh.
If we could bring this up. Benny Johnson posted this. An individual has been arrested for threatening to kill my wife, my 4 children, and me. He sent a letter to my home saying he hated our views and wanted us dead. He's being charged federally and faces prison time. He goes on to thank the president and the Department of Justice for getting this guy arrested, but it looks like this guy was linked to Antifa.
1 month ago today, I witnessed my friend of 10 years, someone who I considered a brother, a loving husband, a devoted father, a generational leader, get assassinated on a live stream by a left-wing radical. Approximately 1 year ago, I witnessed the President of the United States get shot in the head by a left-wing radical who also took the life of a Trump supporter in front of his daughters and wife. 2 months ago, Christian children kneeling and praying in a church were slaughtered by a left-wing extremist. And 2 weeks ago, federal law enforcement was shot at multiple sniper rounds in a federal facility by a left-wing extremist. If it's happening every single week, is it that extreme? Or has the Democrat Party mainstreamed violence as a political tool? The individual who wrote me described why he wanted me dead. I was a white, cis, Christian Trump supporter. They described in great detail how I would be killed in an open field, just like Charlie, how much blood would come out of my head and neck when it was blown off. This individual described orphaning my 4 beautiful children and widowing my wife with great joy.
So we actually have a little background on who this guy was, and I know that the Post Millennial just published this, so we can take a look at that story.
Bondi came up to us after the Antifa roundtable, showing like a lot of concern about us talking about death threats. Mm-hmm. She was, I mean, she seemed very. I don't know her personally. I didn't know her before the Trump administration. She seemed very concerned and very serious.
Yeah, I'm glad that she was concerned.
Yeah.
So Pam Bondi announced the federal charges against the left-wing radical who threatened to kill commentator Benny Johnson. This is from Thomas Stevenson of the Post Millennial. She said that George Isbell Jr., who sent the letter, said he hated Benny because of his views and he wanted Benny dead. And she answered questions about the ideology of the person who was sent the letter. She said that it was a left-wing radical who had sent the letter threatening to kill Johnson. Are we going to see more political assassination attempts? We did just see the man who was convicted of trying to assassinate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. He got only 8 years after saying that he was a woman and he was like transitioning in jail. And she was like, "Oh, we feel bad for you now. You should only get 8 years." Is that that kind of lack of actual punishment, is that kind of tolerance for political assassination attempts. What are we looking at? Is this going to keep going?
Didn't George Santos get 7 years for what he did? Just for example.
Yeah.
Talked to him right before he went to jail.
That's crazy. I still think
7
that's
years.
nuts.
Yeah.
How many Republicans
Over 7 years.
voted to kick him out of Congress? That was nuts. And
Before
Mike
he
Johnson,
was even convicted.
Yeah, Mike Johnson told all of them to vote your conscience. No, dude, that's not what you should
Trust
say.
me, this guy doesn't like me. He hates me, and I
doesn't
don't
matter.
care. I mean, he'll still come out and say that that's ridiculous. But so he gets 7 years.
He gets 7 years.
And the guy that you're talking about, I don't remember
The
his
guy
name.
who Nicholas Roski,
who
tried to assassinate
Sophie now.
Yeah,
Sophie.
whatever.
Right.
We haven't taled about the radicalization of trans yet.
We haven't.
That's a whole nother discussion, isn't it?
We can bring that up. We should have talked about that.
But I
wish
am
this was
I am
longer, but-
glad that I was
Are we
actually
looking
with,
at more of this? Yeah.
I was with Benny when he got this call,
Mm-hmm.
and you could tell he was getting like emotional over the fact that they actually found the guy and they were able to arrest him. He got the call while we were in Portland, embedded with Kristi Noem. And I was glad to see how excited Pam Bondi was when she was talking to us about this at the round table. And she knew about the swatting situation because my parents have been swatted. They try to find me, they can't find me, so they keep going after my family. And I said, yeah, I mean it's still a problem, and we haven't found out who's doing it. And she's like, Cash, here now. Cash comes over and we start talking about it, and he's like, okay, well, here's my my chief of staff. Give him a call. We're going to find out who did this. I promise you that. And she's like, yeah, I mean, the FBI has the resources to do it. They have the ability to do it, and they're going to do it.
Well,
I'm glad they're finally
yeah.
getting serious about this stuff.
I used to work with the Federalist, and I would write for them. And all of the women, at one point, all of the women at the Federalist were getting incessant, crazy phone calls in the dead of night from someone just saying, I'm going to kill you, and I'm leaving voicemails, you're scum, you're Nazi scum, and I'm going to take your head off, and all of this stuff. And I was like, has anybody else been getting these calls? And all of them, yes, we're all getting the calls. You have to alert the FBI. I never heard anything about it, and eventually the calls stopped, but they were terrifying. I mean, it would be 1:00 in the morning, my phone would ring, just be sitting there watching Star Trek, and I'd just be terrified. It was very effective.
And they're normalizing it at this point. Even the in the state next door, you have that person, the front runner for attorney general over there, just being like, yeah, well, some of them have to die. That's how this has to work. That's the only way that.
He thought, his idea is that if you're not touched personally, you're not going to change policy, and so you may as well end up dead. Yeah.
Referring to his children.
Yeah, this was the AG nominee Jay Jones, and last night in the Virginia gubernatorial debate, Abigail Spanberger refused to pull her endorsement. She was just like, "Oh, everyone should vote how they want," and Winsome Earl Sears was like, "Are you crazy? How can you back this guy?"
Yeah, it's not just being normalized. It's being like celebrated, and they're fawning over the idea of violence against their opposition, and that's really the big difference here, is because you'll get psychopaths that are right wing, but nobody on the right's like, awesome, that's so amazing. You're not seeing thousands of people taking it to social media celebrating these things. No.
They killed Charlie, and we all went out into the street and prayed.
For a week straight. That was the response, right?
Yeah.
That was the response. And I was actually interviewing like leftists, and they were bringing up, I don't know why, this one girl that I was talking to, she was actually at the memorial protesting Charlie Kirk because she thought that was a reasonable thing to be doing. And she brought up George Floyd. And I'm like, why would you bring up the response after George Floyd in general and thinking that's a good, comparison there? The response after George Floyd, because they turn this guy into a martyr, was mass violence on a scale we haven't seen in decades. And just see how the not just the right, but just the American people and people that aren't absolutely insane responded to Charlie Kirk's death.
Yeah.
Weeks of vigils and prayer and all of that. And there is a serious difference between the two parties right now when it comes to their reaction to things like that and what they're egging on. And that's really the dangerous thing, is this assassination culture that they're really, so much of the base, a horrifying percentage of the Democrat base is encouraging and cheering on.
Thinks political violence is a way to deal with things. And of course, Charlie's, suspected assassin did have there was a trans component to his story, right? And I think, Andy, I'm really glad you brought up Trantifa, because I think that we should talk about that. What is this relationship between trans and Antifa? What's going on there?
Well, Antifa are time and context specific. So for a number of years, they latched on to BLM because there was a whole system that pumped out lies day in and day out about white supremacy and blacks being genocided by law enforcement. Well, BLM's fallen a bit out of vogue. They've had a number of financial scandals that were embarrassing to the organization. People aren't really giving money to them. There also haven't been really super high-profile cases like George Floyd since 2020 that have been caught on video and have been exploited to that same type of extent. So the next thing, though, has been trans. There's, over the last 4 years, lots of protests for and against trans radicalism in a number of states. Trans militants and activists, mainstream activists, in response to a number of Republican-led states placing restrictions on the transitioning of children, have said that they are now victims of ongoing trans genocide, are encouraging one another to join far-left militias like John Brown Gun Club or the Socialist Rifle Association, stockpile weapons, and be prepared for anti-government action and be prepared to kill fascists and transphobes. And they are pumped with that propaganda in the mainstream and on their radical networks day in and day out. I believe that mental health comorbidities plays a factor in the extremism. And I think hormones, cross-sex hormones, may as well. You put all that together, we're now experiencing a number of mass shootings by trans people that was an unknown phenomenon 10 years ago. And now we're seeing it yearly.
Seems like that's the reaction, like a natural reaction to painting everything that the right wing does as violence. Like even silence is violence, right? For the right. And so it seems as though that just continues to go that direction of every single thing that they do, every single position that they hold is violence. I think, isn't there a catchphrase for basically every single position that conservatives hold? Or
Punch a Nazi in the face.
There you go. Yeah, they're a Nazi, punch them in the face. There you go. Okay. But
punch a Nazi was like a big way that they normalized just violence against conservatives, because it was punch a Nazi. And then conservatives are Nazis, so punch conservatives. And Christians are Nazis, so punch Christians.
The trans genocide thing, though, they just throw that out there. Is there a basis for it? Absolutely not. We recognize that guy. Is there a basis for it? Absolutely not. In fact, I don't know if you guys have this number, but the last time I did the number on the people that identify as trans, that community within the United States, their murder rate is like 1/4 of the general population's murder rate. So they're actually less likely to get murdered than the general population.
But they go crazy on this whole thing.
But they're calling that a genocide because that's just what's popular. It's trendy. And therefore, if you're against, transitioning children and giving children sex changes, you also support this genocide that we made up. And therefore, we're going to use violence against you.
And if you look at a lot of the cases where they say there's a trans genocide, and you look at like the people who've been murdered, you look at it in most of the cases, it's drug related, prostitution related, or domestic violence.
For sure.
Yeah. So could this
the minority is people going after them because they're trans, just like a random
There's individual, and some of those are, someone went on a date with the person and then found out the person was trans and then killed him.
That's exactly right.
That's some weird stories there. But I kind of want to find out is Antifa utilizing or taking advantage of, let's say, trans people because they're mentally ill, or is it because the trans people are misfits and need somewhere to fit in? Or is it a little bit of both? What are your thoughts on that?
I think both. I mean, Antifa have also been amplifying the propaganda of the trans extremists to the point where I coined that term Trantifa because it's like, I think it describes not like a separate movement, really the current manifestation of Antifa. There's disproportionate number of trans people. You've probably seen it on the ground. I can see it.
Portland in particular.
Through the mugshots that I've collected from the riots over the years. Yeah, we're talking about on any given night.
It's like people with tattooed eyeballs, like what is going on?
15% trans or gender diverse. I'll use that term, gender diverse, and in that they don't identify with their biological sex. 15% on some nights, 20%, a third. Nowhere else do you see that type of representation of a trans demographic, another type of like activist type of movements other than like the violent far left. So there's something going on right now, and people should be really concerned that under the pretext of Second Amendment rights, trans militants are stockpiling deadly weapons and training for the purpose of, in their mind, killing those who in the government and killing anybody they label a transphobe and a fascist.
There's a fair amount of that, right? I mean, there's like, what is the Pink Pony Club? Is that one? Am I remembering that correctly? But there was a group of people, and it was a couple of years ago. There were a group of trans militants who were all getting together to go do shooting practice, I think in New Hampshire. And NPR profiled them as though it were this great thing and asked them, oh, why do you feel the need to do this? Well, because of the legislation in several states that is, seeking to commit transgenocide because they won't gender change children. That's why we have to get a bunch of guns and go practice them in New Hampshire.
It's a major difference between like the boomer generation liberals and maybe even leftists versus the younger generation leftists, as they look at the Second Amendment as that's our tool for our violent revolution.
Well, that's also just like the Black Panther Party. I mean, the Black Panthers in California, they had a lot of guns. They were very pro. If a driver got arrested at a traffic stop and police were there, the Black Panthers would go over and be like, we actually, we have guns. Let the person go. That was a big part of the reason that Ronald Reagan started implementing gun control in California. It was because of the Black Panthers.
Which I would still disagree with, actually, honestly.
I would still disagree with it too, but there it was.
Yeah.
There it was. This was part of the issue for them.
It's like the John Brown Gun Club as well, which they were in Seattle at the Chaz, and they ally with other left-wing groups and say, hey, we're your defenders. I went to school in DC at Georgetown, which is a allegedly Catholic university.
The Pink Pistols, not
they had
the
a
Pink
John Brown Gun
the
Club
Pink
flyer.
Pistols.
It just went viral on Georgetown's campus in DC. It's like you need to wait a year just to get a concealed carry permit in DC. So I don't know what the John Brown Gun Club is doing on Georgetown's campus, but it's crazy to me to see a Catholic university now, in Red Square has multiple flyers for the John Brown Gun Club.
What was that flyer? Is that the Charlie Kirk flyer? Or was that the...
Yes, that was the one. It's it says, hey, fascist catch or something like that.
Yeah, so they're actively encouraging violence with their gun club against...
At a Catholic university.
At a Catholic university.
Which is allegedly supposed to be Catholic, but I still coach the hockey team, and they are not Catholic anymore. I can tell you that affirmatively.
How's the hockey team over there? Pretty good?
We had a rough loss to GW last week, but we're 4-2. We're doing all right.
Well, this is something that is on Andy's Twitter that I wanted to bring up. This is a Portland Antifa member with a history of violence, posted a threatening video on social media, shooting up photos of both Andy and Charlie Kirk. Should we look at it?
I don't think we can actually play the video. I would just
okay, because it has
reasons.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. So this is a video. Why don't you describe it?
Well, I can describe it. It's somebody I've reported on before, and law enforcement is aware of this, by the way. But this is typical of the type of threats that I and other people who are in the public eye get for our work trying to expose Antifa. This person used the pictures of my face and Charlie's face as target practice, 5 rounds to my head and 1 in the neck for Mr. Kirk. And, I was just thinking of the press conference that Benny Johnson did with Attorney General Pam Bondi. And a lot of us suffer in silence, in that just for security reasons, we don't disclose all the threats that we're receiving. And you asked earlier, Libby, you asked if I think there'll be another assassination. My answer is yes. It's like, absolutely. The left has really embraced an assassination culture.
When and who?
Well, that's terrifying, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's terrifying for the people in this room and for the people that we all associate with. I remember talking to other women in the movement being like, just bring all the men home. This is, which of course is what the women are supposed to say. That's the
Maybe that's why I can't hold down women at this point.
Right? Bring the men home. Don't let this happen to them. But it is really scary to see this possibility. But it's also emboldening to see the bravery of so many people, like you guys. You're going out there, you're covering this stuff, you're doing the research, you're not letting anybody silence you. You're getting arrested and you're still like, no, like we're not playing with you. We're doing it anyway.
The amount of times,
you see Tim going out, you see all of the Turning Point people going out. I mean, it's been, I got to say, like, as someone who is happy to, sit on my porch and read books and be left alone in the sunshine, it's really been powerful to see how many people are just refusing to be silenced by this.
These terrorists cannot win. They can't win. Andy, I mean, the amount of messages I got from Andy, like warning me to like stop and get out of there. Multiple. I mean, he knows better than anybody,
Right.
but I can't get off the street. I feel like that's just surrendering to them.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that did Cam Higbee, shout out to Cam. He wasted no time. He started a campus tour. What is it called? Fearless Debates. Sure. Started a campus tour right away, going around the country, debating students. Everyone's ramping up the reporting on Antifa and their activity. I don't see anybody backing down.
I cannot. Just speaking on Cam Higbee, I have never seen someone routinely get assaulted as many times as this poor guy. And everybody they try to accuse him of like staging it or something, but he releases all of the raw footage. It's and what leads up to it, and he's never doing anything but speaking. He's never he's never even defensive with them. They just go all out. I mean, it happened last week in D.C. again, and then the assailant was luckily arrested, but I don't think she was going to be until
Those chairs were pretty faulty. They were sitting in those chairs. I was like, dude, did you get those chairs on Temu? That thing was like about to tip over. Let's just be real here.
There's that one Ginger guy. His handle's like Ginger something. And I recently learned who this guy was. He's a popular leftist on Instagram. He has like 1.2, 1.1 million followers. And he was there. And he decided to post on his page. I don't know. He was like at some encampment in D.C. And he was there reporting on it. And he showed just that girl that worked in academia, by the way, that assaulted Cam, showed just him pepper spraying her after she attacked him. But he only showed that little piece and said, oh, look, Cam Higbee is assaulting these peaceful protesters. And he went, did a whole selfie video and did a follow-up and got millions of people riled up against Cam. And the entire thing was a lie because Cam obviously had the footage and released everything. As you were saying, he released the whole thing and you get to see all the context. You can draw the conclusion. I mean, you can draw your own opinions about the matter, but he's going to release everything. There's not anything being taken out of context there.
What's really interesting also, like at these protests, you saw like a lot of the people, even on the Antifa side, they're filming, right? Like they got their phones, but I never really see much of that footage like ever come out. They were accusing me of all these things.
Yeah, you don't always see the stuff from the other side. Like, why aren't they showing it?
I think they probably put it in their own like Discords and
Yeah, they
stuff.
do.
I don't know what they do with it.
They
Because
film you and they're like, I'm filming you. It's like, good.
Yeah,
Go for it.
yeah. Every single time
By
I go
all
to a
means.
protest, they'll as soon as you show up, they'll start recording. In fact, there was one lady, maybe a month ago, I had it in a video, 2 months ago or something. She was filming me, and she was one of the angry boomers at the local protest that I'll go to in Orange County. She was filming me and put her phone down, and I realized she wasn't even recording. I decided to help her out. I was like, excuse me, miss, you weren't recording. She hit record, film me. It's like, I never know what they do with those videos. I have no clue.
So what's next for everybody? And do you think that there's going to be there has been increased violence? We've seen the studies that even though they try and say right-wing violence is still a problem, it show definitively that left-wing violence has been on the rise for at least 10 years. In part, I think, because they still don't know why Trump won in 2016. They're forever baffled by that. But do you think there's more reporters coming up who are, going to be covering this stuff? I mean, what does it look like in terms of independent media? What's going on?
Well, it's so amazing that what is required now to be a journalist, honestly, is, hey, show up to a protest, bring your cell phone, start recording. That's pretty much all you need to be doing.
And doing that, you're still doing a hell of a lot more than the legacy media is doing.
For sure. I'm definitely seeing more people on the street that are covering these anti-ICE protests, because that's what we're looking at now. We're no longer BLM, right? We're anti-ICE.
It's not BLM. It's no longer pro-Palestinian, which we had for a while.
There's a little bit of that, but it's dying out. Yeah.
Right. But you notice how they're not like, yay, Trump got a peace deal.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll never be like that.
Andy, you might have touched on this earlier, but it's really just a rebranding. Same groups, essentially. BLM's slightly different, right? Because you're not seeing a bunch of BLM activists out on the street right now. You're seeing some, but not that entire group that they were able to mobilize. But in a general sense, it's still the same far left-wing groups that just rebrand. Every single time. It's just them doing the Gaza stuff, them doing BLM stuff, them doing anti-ICE stuff. And they try to just recruit whoever they can get mobilized. They
find the trendy partner with the cause du jour. Yeah. And they go for it. Well, I want to thank all you guys for hanging out today and really giving some deep insight into this issue. It's something that I'm mostly familiar with just from working with Andy and reading his drafts, and following his work, and Katie. So I'm so grateful to find out more about this. Do you guys want to shout anything out? Richie, you want to start?
Go get Riot Diet. You can read about Andy and Katie and the Chaz, where it all began. And, everything now is just a pale shadow of what happened in 2020.
If you haven't read it yet, read Unmasked, my book, and my Substack is at ngocomment.com.
It's a pleasure to be here with everybody. I got it's especially to be able to hear from you directly this week and all your insight on. You've been covering this for so long. You've been a warrior in the field, doing it. I'm so glad you were able to get here to Washington to be able to come to that roundtable. I mean, your insight is one of the reasons that Antifa is being taken seriously by the administration right now. So thank you so much, Andy. And
thank you.
You'll find me later. I'm actually hosting Timcast IRL tonight because the other host couldn't actually get here. So I am the backup host tonight, and I will see you guys at 8 p.m. Eastern time right here in the same studio.
Who's your guest? Who do you have?
Alex Rosen.
Nice.
So that'll be fun. He's an interesting character. So
right on. Respect the hustle. I'm going to piggyback on that, actually. Andy's definitely the eye in the sky when it comes to a lot of protest coverage. I think you saved my life like once or twice.
He's like the intel guy.
Letting me know that I've been, my cover's been blown. So I appreciate that. You guys definitely get their books. Unmasked, right?
Yes.
And then Riot Diet. I got Riot Diet maybe a few months ago. Great book. I'm James Klug. You can subscribe to me over on youtube.com/James Klug. I do have a bunch of videos dropping, and for any subscribers that are watching, I apologize for slacking on that. But thank you guys so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys. I'm Libby Emmons. You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons. You can check out everything we're doing at thepostmillennial.com and humanevents.com. Thanks so much.